Now let's talk about passages. What kind of passages will you see?
The answer is almost every frickin' type under the sun. You will see articles about stuff you might enjoy reading, about sports, fashion, cool short stories, video games, maybe even a passage from Harry Potter. No, just kidding. You probably won't see that one. Unfortunately, on the SAT, you will also see passages about stuff that couldn't interest you less, like the biochemistry of bees or the effects of globalization on garbage disposal. You ever think, dang, it's like they're trying to bore me on purpose? Well, congratulations, you are 100% right. SAT test makers want to test to see how well you read hard, dense, and honestly not too interesting articles. They want to see how well you do against different writing styles and different topics. Let's see what we got here on the SAT bookshelf. At least one passage of the test will be a narrative. That means a passage told from a novel, a short story, an autobiography, or a personal essay. So this will be like a passage taken away from Jane Eyre or the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. At least one will relate to science. So that means botany, zoology, chemistry, astronomy, etc. So this is maybe an article about the significance of astronomy on the development of future societies, or an excerpt about the foundations of natural selection. Another will be the humanities. That's art, literature, music, philosophy. So maybe an essay about the difference in art style between Salvador Dali and Frida Kahlo, or a description on the development of classical music. A fourth will relate to social sciences. That's history, economics, sociology, government. So in this category, you might see a description of different types of religion or an account of the Civil War. Of these passages, at least one will be ethnic in nature. That means at least one will be about some kind of minority. It could be a passage about European history or a short story about a Native American girl adjusting to U.S. culture. But whatever it is, it will deal with the concerns of a particular group of people. Here's a useful tip. Remember how on most of the SATs the questions are generally organized from easiest to hardest? Well, reading passages are not organized by level of difficulty, but it is organized by something even more useful. For reading passages, questions are ordered sequentially by the order their content appears on the passage. That's right. Have you ever felt like searching for the answer to a question in a passage is kind of like searching for a pin in a haystack? It may seem that way, but hold on, because the questions are ordered sequentially. We can use that to help us locate the answer.
So a question near the beginning of the set of questions, like question 10 here, probably relates to the beginning of the passage. And a question at the end of the set, like question 13 here, probably relates to near the end of the passage. The only exception are the overall passage questions, which apply to the passage in general, and are located at the very beginning or at every end of the question set. So how will you know this? And what does this mean? And how can you use this information? Well, this means that you are given clues that will help you find the location of the answer you are looking for. For example, if you know where in the passage the answer of question 10 is located, and you know where in the passage the answer 12 is located, then you can be pretty sure that the answer to question 11 is somewhere in between. That's kind of cool, huh? This should save you time searching for the answer.
Now it's time to talk about short passages. The critical reading section will have 8 questions related to short passage. That may not seem like a whole lot, but short passage points are generally some of the easier points. That means you definitely don't want to skip those or fail to grab these points. I think of the points on the SAT like fruit hanging from a tree. Each piece of fruit is worth the same amount, but some are on way lower branches and much easier to grab. Why not make sure you grab those first?
Now let's go over our recommended strategy for tackling the different passage types. This is the part of the lecture where we will go over how to approach reading comprehension questions. Short passages first. Since short passages are only a couple paragraphs in length, they are super short. Thank God. That's also why they tend to be easier. So with these short passages, you should start by quickly apprehending the passage. What is apprehending? It is a type of high-speed reading where you ignore most of the details or you try to exact the main ideas only. You're going to stick your nose in the air at all those little details and facts. Your goal with apprehending is to extract the main 1 to 2 points in the article. So as you read, ask yourself, what is the main idea of this passage?
Say you're a video game expert. Say you live and breathe StarCraft and you play World of Warcraft until you pass out from exhaustion at 3 a.m. every night. Well, what if you were to get a passage about the benefits of playing video games? You would go into that passage with all these personal preconceived notions, wouldn't you? It's easy to misunderstand what the author is saying when you already think you have a good idea of what the author should be saying. So you have to be careful. The more you know, the more you have to block all prior knowledge from your head.
That means you will never have a question like, in which year did Abraham Lincoln become president? Because if you did, you could just look at the passage and find the answer. Instead, all the questions are going to be about what does the paragraph mean, and what did the author imply, and so forth. And that's why you wouldn't read it the way you normally read for high school exams. Instead of focusing on details like dates and facts, you ignore those completely. What you are looking for are main ideas. The kind of fast and high-level reading is what we call apprehending the passage. At the end of your skim of the passage, you should be able to summarize the article in a couple sentences. Just a couple sentences. That's all the information they want you to take away. All the other stuff, the details, the adjective, the whatnots, you don't need to keep in your mind because you are only looking for the big idea here. Let's give this a go now. I'll give you 2 minutes to quickly read through a passage. As you read it, I want you to apprehend it. Then I want you to jot down a summary of the main idea of the passage in your notebook. Got it? You have 2 minutes. Good luck. Okay, got it? I'll show you mine if you show me yours. But just kidding, I can't see yours. Passage 1. Science fiction isn't that useful except it highlights some cultural tendencies. Passage 2. Although science fiction is generally wrong, it gives kids insight to some scientific elements. Does that look a lot like yours? This exercise of jotting down a summary is a great way for me to make sure that I understand the passage. Of course, on the real SAT, you're not going to be able to jot down summaries, but instead you should just get used to thinking of them in your head as you read. This process of apprehending is super important to the SATs. But hey, it's also pretty important in real life too. Many times in college or at your job someday, you will need to be able to read and understand the main ideas really quickly. And that's when this skill will come in handy again. Once you've apprehended this passage, then you're on to tackle the question. But remember, you must be able to point your finger at the answer in the passage before you circle the answer. For example, let's take a look at this question. The question reads, the author of passage 1 would agree with the author of passage 2 that what? A. Science fiction can inspire young people to become scientists. B. Science fiction is more absurd than Westerns. C. Science fiction is not an accurate description of scientific fact. D. Young people should read science fiction to expand their knowledge of culture. Or E. Science fiction can teach scientific methodology.
Just looking at the question, I can already tell how it could be very easy to mess up and forget which passage said what and meant what. For example, did passage 1 say science fiction inspired young people? Maybe. Or was that passage 2? Or neither? It's hard to remember. Don't rely on your memory. Why would you? You are given the power of having the passage with all the answers right there in front of you. The answer is right there, staring at you. Let's take a good look back at it. I'm going to walk you through my thought process as I solve one of these questions so you can get a feel for this. It may seem like a long process to you, but you really do have to go through every answer choice. As you practice, you gradually achieve extraterrestrial-like speeds, just like me.
Let's look at A. Science fiction can inspire young people to become scientists. Glancing over passage 1, I see that the author kinda hates on science fiction. He definitely didn't think science fiction inspired young people. So let's cross off A right away, because now we know that can't be correct. Let's look at B. Science fiction is more absurd than Westerns. Let's check out passage 1. In lines 3 through 5, it says, most of the science is wrong anyway, and it amounts as such that one might as well be reading Westerns in the hopes of finding out about ranching methods. Okay, so the author isn't really saying science fiction is more absurd than Westerns, he's just comparing the two. Let's cross off B too. What about C? Science fiction is not an accurate description of scientific fact. Let's check out passage 1. In lines 3 through 5 that we just checked, it says, most of the science is wrong anyway. Great, so the author definitely thinks science fiction isn't accurate. And we know this for sure because we are able to put our fingers on the exact line of the passage that told us the answer. Now let's look at passage 2. In the first line, line 12, the passage reads, much of the science in science fiction is hokum. Some of it is totally wrong. Dang, this author guy definitely doesn't think science fiction is right either. Fantastic. So it looks like we have a winner right here. It's called answer choice C. However, before we can circle anything as the correct answer, we should look at all the answer choices. Let's take a peek at D. Young people should read science fiction to expand their knowledge of culture. Passage 1 does say in lines 8 through 9 that science fiction provides a fictional mode in which cultural tendencies can be isolated and judged. But be careful. The author doesn't say anything to suggest young people should read science fiction. So no, D is not a good answer. So let's cross it out. Lastly, let's look at E. Science fiction can teach scientific methodology. Going back to passage 1, I see again lines 3 through 5 are basically saying that science fiction is completely whack and totally wrong. So no, the dude who wrote passage 1 would not think that science fiction teaches scientific methodology. Bravo! And we are done. Let's cross off E and circle C, the correct answer.